We all live on stories. I live on stories that my grandfather told me about his grandfather. My grandfather was born in 1909, and his father probably in the 1880s, and his father, my grandpa's granddad, somewhere in the 1850s or 1860s. So the stories that still influence me have their immediate origin in a person that lived 150 years ago. The same is true for you. One day, if life doesn't throw us a mean curveball, we all will tell our grandkids stories. In those stories, we remember the stories that have influenced us, that formed us, and that helped us make us into the people we became. We will look into the eyes of our grandkids, and we will tell them the story of us. So whenever you think of your life that it has no significance, or that you will not be remembered, or that you have no story to tell, or that no one wants to hear your story, remember always that that is not true. My grandpa died when I was 16. His grandpa died long before him. But their stories are interwoven with mine. And so will your stories be interwoven with a generation that will follow you. And 150 years from now, your stories will still be around. So I think it's a good idea to spend some time thinking about what stories we tell and how we tell them. When we look back at our life and when we imagine our future, how do we tell that story? Are we subjects of life, or do we shape the events that tell our life story? Are we active or are we passive? Does life happen to us, or are we actively living life? When we start out, we are all dealt with a hand of cards. Our parents are rich or not, they are loving or not, and they make wise decisions or not. And while we deal with our immediate situation, we are also influenced by the trajectory of history. We are all part of the grand story of our nation. Some of us experienced war, some of us didn't. All of us went through some seriously technological change. Some of us loved that, some of us hated that. And some of us experienced firsthand the economic roller coaster of a more and more globalizing world. And some of us experienced smooth sailing, whatever they did. And some of us had a bit of everything. The story of us is complex. We are women and men who live through the tension between the private world and world history. My grandpa lived through the most violent part of German history. After the empire had crumbled, the Germans were divided into various political and religious and social fractions. There was absolutely no common ground between them. There was virtually nothing this fractured society could agree on. Democracy for them was just a hollow concept, and all the splintered elements of society tried to win. Through the 1920s, violence, defamation, abuse of power, strikes, and rebellion, armed rebellion, were part of daily life, until the guy with a little beard seemed to win the game in 1933. British propaganda called him Private Schicklgruber, which is a name that is very fitting, I think. But his project was no success. When he was done leading the master race to world domination, vast parts of the world lay in ruins, and millions and millions and millions of people were dead. The lesson that I take from that story is that you cannot win. When you're trying to win and you succeed in winning, then victory is only the prelude to the next fight. When the Germans were defeated in World War I, that was only the prelude to World War II. And when World War II was won, we continued right on with the Cold War. And now that the Cold War is over, we're fighting the war on terror. And is that finally the war to end all wars? I wish, but I think that's very unlikely. I ask myself what happens to post-Brexit Europe. Maybe the old rivalry between Germany and Great Britain will be resurrected, and Britain's victory in World War II is indeed the prelude to the next conflict. I pray to God to do something, to throw rain from heaven, to boost compassion, to take away nationalistic pride, because I do not trust European politicians to have learned the lessons of history. They want to win again. And history is full of victories. The Egyptians, the Hittites, the Greeks, the Romans, the Ottomans, the Spanish, the English, the French, the German, the Americans, they all won at some point or another. And did that make the world safer? Maybe for a bit. Did that bring prosperity, freedom, and hope? For some time, until the next enemy took it all away again. We could now tell the fatalistic story of this planet that dwells in cynicism and despair. We could pray to God to give us peace on earth, because left to our own devices, we sure as hell will make war. Or we could reframe the story we tell. The good thing about stories is that they are not carved in stone. There's always room for a little bit of happy end. It starts with us taking the leading role in the story of our life. We are the ones whose actions drive the plot. And if we have the feeling that we are mere subjects who found ourselves mostly on the receiving end of life, with the help of Jesus Christ, we can take back the reins. At any point in our lives, we are free to adapt our story. As disciples of Christ, we are empowered to heal the sick, to cast out demons, and even raise the dead. Take a moment to appreciate the power that gives us. It means that we are free to tell our story in any way we like. We can be active heroes that shape the plot as we play the hand that we are dealt, or we can understand ourselves as powerless subjects of forces that are beyond our control, and therefore we can't influence anything, and life just takes us on a ride. War, politics, religion just happens. What can we do? And at the moment, the story that everybody tells in this country is a story of deep division. Left and right, Republicans and Democrats, male and female, black and white, cowboy and Indian, North and South, Lutheran and Roman Catholic, mainline and evangelicals, Muslim and Christian, Jew and Gentile, gay and straight. The list is endless. There seems to be no common ground, but only hate and vitriol and the desire to win and subdue the other. But I think you cannot win. This fight has no winners, only losers. Our communities are torn apart by partisan forces, and naturally what drives the country apart also drives some of our ELCA congregations apart. What happens outside of our churches informs what happens inside. But this is a two-way street. What happens here can also influence what happens outside. What if we tell a different story? If we look at our neighbors in this congregation, we will find people who are different. The stories of their life led them to make different choices than we would have made. They made different choices in all aspects of life. One possibility to react to that is, you are different, and so I storm out of the church. And on my way out, I bang the door so hard that the chandeliers fall down. Or we take the patience and the time to listen to those different stories and let them percolate through our community and eventually allow those different stories to mingle and be woven together with our own. Who knows? We might find nuggets of wisdom in unexpected places. Hope starts with a poor preacher who walks the dusty streets of the Holy Land. And with him walk a couple of fishermen who have given up everything to help him tell the story of God. And hope continues with us as we stay true to the story of God's love and grace. And that love and grace is the main thread of our story. The divisions that plague us and drive us apart are just subplots to our common story. We don't shove them under the rug and pretend everything is hunky-dory and we are not divided. But we recognize that there are more things that connect us than there are things that divide us. And those divisions we accept with grace, with patience, and with love. And when we focus on this very Christian story, we leave a lasting legacy. And this story of love and genuine goodwill towards those who are different will inform the stories that are told beyond our walls. They will inform the stories our grandkids tell, and these stories will have an immensely long shelf life. In times of division, church needs to be different. Church needs to be a space of connection that reconnects what is entrenched in the culture wars. And that is our task, connect to each other. It is our task to heal, to raise the dead, and to cast out the demons. And that we have to do right here and right now. Amen.